am 91 years old. I can hear the footsteps of death in the corridor outside my room, and that sound is the only honest thing left in my house. Everything else has been a performance. Everything else has been a carefully maintained lie that I constructed with my own hands over 50 years, and then lived inside of like a prisoner who built her own cell and threw away the key. Before I go, and while I can still speak clearly enough to be understood, I need to burn this house of cards down to its foundation, because the truth is the only debt I am still obligated to pay before the end. I owe you money I do not have. I owe you time that has already passed. But I owe you this. I owe you the truth about the life we shared and the man you thought your father was. You believe in perfect families because it is more comfortable to sleep that way. Because the alternative, the real version of things, requires you to rearrange everything you built your understanding of the world on. I know that. I chose your comfort over your reality for 5 decades. I was wrong to do it, and I am correcting that mistake now at 91 years old with whatever time I have left. Sit down, because I spent 50 years building a forgery, and I will not let you spend the next 50 years making the same mistake I made. My name is Elena. For 5 decades I was the finest actress you have ever seen, though I have no award to show for it, and no audience that ever knew they were watching a performance. I played the role of a contented wife in a loving marriage inside a happy family. I played it at birthday dinners and holiday gatherings and Sunday afternoons in the garden. I played it in the mornings when I handed your father his coffee, and in the evenings when I said goodnight and turned off the light and lay in the dark next to a man who had chosen to be somewhere else in every way that mattered. You grew up believing your father was a hero. You grew up believing our marriage was something worth admiring, something to aspire to. You used it as your reference point for what love looks like, for what a family is supposed to feel like. And that foundation has been rotten for 50 years. I kept that secret because I believed I was protecting you. I understand now that I was only protecting myself from having to live inside the truth. Let me take you back to the winter of 1976. Your father was 35 years old that year. Everyone in our community knew him as the most dependable man in the neighborhood, a devoted family man, someone whose word meant something. He coached Little League and helped elderly neighbors carry their groceries, and always had the right thing to say at church on Sunday. That was the version of him the world saw. That winter, he packed a suitcase and left. He went to a woman he had been seeing for 8 months, someone I had not known existed, until I found a phone number in the pocket of his coat while I was doing the laundry. He left without a conversation and without an apology. He told me later when I found him that he hated our life, that the responsibility of children and mortgage and routine had suffocated him, that he had never wanted any of it the way I had wanted it. I found him in a cheap motel on the edge of town. The room smelled of cigarettes and the specific kind of desperation that comes from a man who has run away from his own life. I sat across from him at a small table with a water stain on its surface, and I made a decision that I have lived with every single day since. I offered him money, not a small amount. I offered him the entire inheritance my parents had left me when they died. Every cent. Money, I had been holding carefully for years, money that represented the labor of people who loved me and wanted my future to be secure. I handed it to him across that water-stained table, and I told him that if he came home, I would ask nothing of him, no explanations, no promises, just his presence. He came home. For 50 years after that, I purchased his participation in our family. I paid for his smiles at your birthday parties. I paid for his silence at the dinner table. I paid for the version of a father you needed to believe in, with the money my parents left me, and with decades of my own silence, and with every honest feeling I learned to swallow before it could reach my face. The man you admired was a paid actor in his own family. I created a hero from a coward and a betrayer because I believed your childhood required that illusion. I fed that illusion every night in the empty bedroom while he slept with his back to me. You were loved by a ghost, and I kept that ghost alive by pouring my own life into him. I told myself I was a martyr. I told myself the sacrifice was worth it because your childhoods were stable and your father was present, and the family photograph looked the way a family photograph is supposed to look. But what I actually did was deprive you of the most important lesson a parent can teach. I never showed you how to leave a place where you are not loved. I taught you instead to endure dishonesty for the sake of appearances, and that lesson has followed you into every relationship you have built since. I had a sister. Her name was Ellen. May God rest her soul, though I did everything in my power to make her life harder than it needed to be. Ellen was the only person who knew the truth. She watched me disappear into this lie year by year, watched me become a smaller and quieter version of myself. She watched the real Elena retreat so far inside the performance that even I could not always find her anymore. In the 1980s, when you were teenagers, Ellen came to me and begged me to tell you everything. She sat at my kitchen table and she said, "Elena, you are robbing your children. You are building their castle on sand, and when it falls, they will be buried under it." She was not dramatic about it. She was simply correct. I remember our last real conversation in her kitchen. She put a cup of tea in front of me, and she looked at me with the eyes of someone who has decided to say the most important thing, regardless of the consequences. She said, "The truth can wound you once, but a lie kills you a little more every day." Do you know what I did with that? I cut off all contact with her. I removed her from my life completely because she was the one person who might accidentally tell you what I needed you not to know. I sacrificed my sister on the altar of your illusion. I chose a lie I had built over a woman who loved me and told me the truth. Ellen is gone now, and I am the last living person who carries this secret, and I am choosing to put it down. I watched you choose your partners based on the false image of your father. My daughter married a cold and withholding man because she read emotional distance as masculine strength. She had learned to read it that way from watching her father. My son became a man who works until midnight and misses his children growing up because he believed that was what devoted fathers do. My lie reshaped how you understand love. You have been trying your whole lives to match a standard that never existed, to earn approval from a man who was never the man you thought he was. to replicate a marriage that was a transaction dressed up as devotion. Ellen was right. My castle on sand became your cage. Now I will give you 5 bitter truths. These are things I kept hidden for 50 years. You're going to hear them today. Truth 1. Perfect families do not exist. The people who speak most loudly about their happiness are usually hiding the darkest thing. If you are searching for perfection in a relationship, you are searching for a lie someone has agreed to tell you. Accept the cracks in your life, because that is where real light enters, not the manufactured shine I created for you. Life is not a polished photograph. It is the long, unglamorous work of choosing honesty over comfort every single day. Truth 2. Sacrificing yourself for your children is often a crime committed against them. I believed I was saving you. I was taking something from you instead. Never stay in a place where your soul is dying, not even for the sake of your children. Children do not absorb what you tell them. They absorb how you live. If you live inside a lie, you teach them that lying to themselves is what love requires. I taught you that. I am sorry for it. Truth 3. Secrets have weight, and that weight grows with every year you carry them. 50 years. This secret was a stone around my neck for 50 years. It made it impossible to breathe fully. It made it impossible to be fully present with you, because part of me was always standing guard over the thing I could not let you see. You never knew the real me, because the real me was always partially occupied with protecting the lie. Be honest even when it is painful. The pain of truth passes. The rot of a sustained lie does not. Truth 4. You cannot save another person. I believed that if I gave him enough money and enough comfort and enough patience, he would eventually choose to love us genuinely. That belief was a form of madness. You cannot buy love. You cannot create in someone a capacity that was never there. Do not waste the years of your life trying to repair people who have already made their choice and chosen betrayal. That is time you will not get back. Truth 5. The truth is the most painful gift you can give someone. It is also the most valuable. Today, I give it to you. You are free now from the shadow of a man who never existed in the form you knew him. You do not have to try to be like him anymore. You do not need his approval, which was never genuinely his to give. You know now that your mother was a frightened woman who made an enormous mistake and then protected that mistake for half a century. That knowledge will make you stronger than any story I ever told you. Here's your assignment. Look at the person closest to you and say one thing you have been too afraid to say because you were worried it would disturb the peace between you. Take off the mask. Stop performing the role of the perfect partner or the perfect parent or the person who has everything under control. Let the people who love you see your actual pain and your actual weakness. That is where real connection begins. Do it now, before you have accumulated 50 years of regret the way I have. In the last night of your father's life, He looked at me from the hospital bed. There was no gratitude in his eyes. There was only bitterness, the particular bitterness of a man who spent his life in a place he had chosen for the wrong reasons and blamed someone else for the choosing. He said to me, "I have never been able to forgive you for making me stay. 50 years of life in a golden cage paid for by my money and my silence and my youth and my sister and my real self. We both lost. I bought his body and his presence and his performance of fatherhood, and his soul resented me for every day of it. And I resented myself for needing the lie enough to pay for it. We sat on opposite sides of a transaction we called a marriage, and we both paid more than we could afford, and we both walked away empty. Life is not the image in the family photograph. Life is what you feel when the lights go out and you are alone with your